Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Beyond the Game for our month of March. It's good to see everybody, and I hope all of you are having a good early spring. Tonight, we're joined by an exciting guest, along with our Senior Vice President of the Lasorda Way, Steve Jones. He will be interviewing former Major League pitcher and longtime pitching coach Dave Righetti. Dave Righetti was a 1981 American League Rookie of the Year, threw a historic no-hitter with the Yankees on 4th of July of 1983, and he later became one of the game's top closers. After his playing career, he spent a couple decades as a pitching coach with the San Francisco Giants and helped guide them to their 2010, 2012, and 2014 World Championships. Dave is currently the pitching coach for Team Italy for the World Baseball Classic, and I know they have some games coming up, so we wish them the best of luck. And just one side note, this is a recording of an interview due to Dave's busy schedule. So if anyone does have any questions for Dave or for Steve Jones, you could please send them to info@lasordaway.com.
Hi, everyone. Today, I am very proud and privileged to welcome MLB legend Dave Righetti to the Lasorda Way series. Thanks so much for joining us this evening. We really appreciate your time. We know what a busy schedule you have. We are thrilled for you to be on this series and to share your insights and knowledge of baseball with all of our Steel Sports coaches, athletes, and families. And here at Steel Sports, we have a unique coaching system, which is focused on positive coaching. And throughout your career as a player and a coach, you've worked with a lot of different types of coaches. So what are some of your best and worst examples and memories? And you do not have to name the worst ones.
You know, it's a hard one because you feel like they're all your guys, right? And so like you said, 18 years doing it in the big leagues and the minor leagues, of course, and being a teammate all these years and everything, I just kind of realized that we needed every guy on the staff to be good or a little bit better. You know, you wanted a full, strong staff. As when we were coming up in the 70s, for me, in the 70s and 80s, there was always a bottom part of the roster that the old school, which is not a fair thing. I'm not going to mention names, but the tough managers that if you named a city, you knew the manager. Billy Martin, Sparky Anderson, Dick Williams. I mean, you can go on and on, right? Jimmy Leland. Jimmy Leland was maybe one of the first guys. Tony La Russa a little bit too, was close to being that guy. Where those last 2-3 guys didn't want to kill them because they weren't playing or they were just, not pitching. And the old school ways was to kind of shuffle those guys out of there and bring in fresh blood every year. And then the top guys, you hope you didn't lose them once free agency started. Now all of a sudden, you had a group of guys together for a long time. You gelled the way that you wanted to play a game or play ball. Well, I always kind of noticed in New York during our turbulent times in the 80s, there was a lot of turnover. We had a lot of different managers, a lot of coaches being fired, a lot of players coming and going. We won the most games of any team in baseball, National League, American League, in the 80s, but we didn't win a division or a title. So what was missing? To me, I thought we were missing that glue factor where everybody was pulling on the same rope. And when I went into coaching, I kind of wanted to coach that way, but the hardest part, you're being hired by somebody to get these pitchers to do their job. And at the same time, you're thinking long term, but you have to win, otherwise you might not be around for a couple of years. So fortunately, I was young enough, I think at the time, I was 38 or 9 when I took over, which was very young back then. And Brian Sabian trusted me, the GM, and who is back with the Yankees now. But Brian, he could see that I was passionate about the organization and the health of our pitchers and trying to get every little guy to get a little bit better. That just makes the whole group better. So there was times when we didn't do very well. He actually gave me the biggest pat on the back. World Series are crazy, you're happy, but There was 15 other years where we didn't win, but the best years were the 3 years we really weren't in contention, but all of our young minor league kids got to come to the big leagues. And we got them just a little bit better, whether or not it was going to be championship level or not. My job was to get these guys a little bit better. Somebody signed them, somebody coached them in the minors, when they came to me, I felt a responsibility. So that's my long-winded version of, because I basically, and I used to worry that I cared too much, that I had to be a little more callous and tough. And so but to me, I saved that for the game and against the other team and not against our guys. And I tried to be, I was demanding. I wanted certain things out of them that they had to do on the field. But I knew it was for they're going to want it too someday. But fair, I think I was fair.
And you make a great point there. Your job when you're employed in the professional game is to win. But even to help the teams win the most often that they can, there has to be a mutual respect and a strong relationship between the management and the players. And the old school approach is fine. You can be demanding of players, but I think it's essential that they know that you care about them as a person as well as an athlete, so they will accept the constructive criticism that you offer them.
100%. I totally agree with you. And there's such a changeover now. It used to be you'd lose a coach or manager and maybe 2-3 guys would be fired. They're firing whole staffs now. And they're changing things I read your other notes where you're going to ask me some questions about the kids and playing when you're young and little kids playing ball and children, boys and girls. But the patient level is so much different, right? And they say it's big money. They complain that we were making too much. Every year you're making too much. And then I'd have my agent say, you never make enough. You're going to need it when you retire. But the patient factor has changed quite a bit. And because there were gimmicks. There's a lot of gimmicks and not foundational baseball and thought about how to run teams and keep guys together, have guys want to be in your organization, things like that. So, yeah, we can go round and round with that.
And you did play in one of the toughest markets in the world, the New York Yankees. You were under microscope as a teenager, and you had some struggles at that time. We talk to our kids all the time about the need to have commitment and integrity on and off the field. And I think these are two things that you showed in abundance at your time in New York City. Can you talk a little bit about how challenging that was for you?
Well, there was so much, but I've had to think about it quite a bit, and I've used it to help coach my players because I did go so in 1978, the Yankees were on their 3rd World Series, and they had just beaten the Dodgers, I believe, in 78. And I'm working in a sporting goods store. I was done with my minor league season with the Texas Rangers. I was 19. And I didn't get a phone call. I think I got it. I just read the paper the next day. I was traded. I was in a big trade. And it was for Sparky Lyle left the Yankees. He was the Cy Young Award winner the year before. But then the Yankees, George Steinbrenner, went out and signed Goose Gossage, another Hall of Famer, and traded Sparky to the Texas Rangers, and I was in that trade. And I'm going to the Yankees. So my dad looked at me, who had played minor league baseball with the Yankees for years. He goes, they got a pretty good team, huh? And I said, yeah, what do you mean? He goes, well, you're not going to the big leagues. I thought I was going to go to big league camp, AAA at least, and maybe the big league team. He goes, this is a world championship team with a veteran club. For a young 19, 20-year-old to go there, somebody else has to lose their job. It's not like it is today. And I started thinking about that. I said, oh, you're right. And because maybe with the Rangers, who weren't a top flight team at the time, maybe I would have had a shot at making the ball club. So that was my first wake-up call. The second one was walking in that clubhouse and being with Reggie Jackson and Catfish Hunter, and Thurman Munson, and all these guys, and going, oh boy, this is different. And I was ballyhooed. And a lot of articles about the team winning, Billy Martin, George Steinbrenner, and then maybe because the writers had a fresh face, I was all over the place. I was the key to the deal. It was 10 guys. It was a 10-man deal. So anyway, that's where it started. And I think I had to learn how to talk to the press immediately. And I got help because a lot of the veteran sports writers and women too would offer me advice. They knew I was a young kid answering the same question over and over. And actually, as the New York Post and the news and all they're fighting for news, I would get kind of tough questions where I almost pitch you against somebody, or it was an odd situation. And Jim Cott, who's still with us and a great Hall of Famer and ex-Yankee broadcaster, excuse me, he took me out to dinner. I was 19, he was 42 years old, I think. We had a nice dinner, and the way he embraced me and talked to me, it helped me, and don't worry, he's seen it before. He's seen young guys, a lot of stuff on them. Because I was more comfortable on the field at that time than in the clubhouse, let's put it that way. So I just listened. I tried to pay attention to Ron Guidry, who was my locker mate. And I had crusty old veteran Greg Nettles on my other side, and Lou Piniella and guys like this. And there was a lot going on. But you could almost get lost in that, which actually helped. There was so much attention on Reggie or whatever. But having it all on me in that kind of world champion clubhouse for maybe a week or two, that was not easy. And I was worried about my minor league teammates and what those guys thought of me, because my peers were AA guys and AAA guys. And so my peers weren't the big league guys just because I was in that locker room. I didn't want them, when I got to minor league camp, oh, there's the big shot so that was tough to deal with. But my mom raised me pretty good. My dad had played ball for years and kind of got the game, understood it. So I think that helped quite a bit. My brother was a player too. So yeah, but it was tough. It wasn't easy. And then it got worse because Mr. Steinbrenner had no patience for young players, and unless you were really good. And you think that, then you play good for a little while. You think, oh, he's not going to bother me. But I start looking back and I said, wow, all those 10, 12 years I was there, I never played with a guy from the minor leagues my age ever. And then I think Al Leiter came up in 1987 or something. That was the closest thing. So I had to think older than I was, I think, at the time. And,
right.
Yeah.
Some really relevant comments there for our parents about the way that your parents played such a part in how you developed. And I think that's probably even truer today with the support that the young people need. You yourself have got 3 older children now, but I wonder what it was like when they were younger and playing sports, the things that you saw, how you helped them, and how you were able to separate yourself and your success from putting pressure on them.
I tried not to help them. I tried to just guide them. There's a difference. And quietly, my father, we didn't know he was an ex-pro ball player back in the 60s and 70s. There was no internet. There was anything. There was a couple things in the house. We knew he played baseball, but he seemed to know the game really well, but he was quiet. And he never did coaches until we got older, because he didn't like the little league thing at all. That was back in the 70s, early 70s. But I think I learned how to let them they were lucky. We have triplets, the 3 kids. So they had instant teammates and play, they could play together. So that helped. But my son probably faced it harder than anybody, but we introduced them to every sport we could because I believe in sport, which means everything. I think it's good for the body, the mind, everything. And we all know that's changed the last 30 years with the travel leagues and the money and paying. The happiest times in my life, and I know my son's and my kids' life, has all been playing bobby sock softball or little league baseball, t-ball, whatever it was. You can't see them any happier. And then when it started to go, you got to go to travel volleyball and travel baseball and only baseball. You can't play basketball anymore. You can't take karate. You can't Italian lessons. We used to. They couldn't get it all in. You know what I mean? And but I think it's sad because every kid. It's not fair to Tiger Woods, but it's almost the Tiger Woods syndrome. They saw his father, and they thought, if I'm this way with my son, because it was very visible all over the world, this is how you must to do it to get this guy to pay for my house, your mom's house. That it's not parenting. To me, that's wonderful. It's awesome that Tiger was able to do that, and you want your parents to be involved in your life and vice versa. But overall, millions of people, I don't think it works. I think they want to quit after about when they're 12 years old. They don't want to see that sport again. You see a lot of that in the Olympics going on now. You're supposed to be emotional, but they're over emotional. And you can tell they're nervous. But nerves used to make us play better, and I'm seeing it really crush people in the spotlight, and I hate watching that. But everything's so, gosh, it's tough now. These kids are so aware, so young. So
yeah, and yes, unfortunately, it's true. There's a great deal of pressure from parents and sometimes for kids to become early specializers in one particular sport. We at Steel Sports, however, are massive supporters of kids playing a variety of sports. Many of the leading professional athletes in all areas of sports were multi-sport athletes at high school and some of them at college. I think more parents need to embrace the fact that their kids will thrive later in life if they had a broader breadth of experience when they were young. And this doesn't just pertain to sports. This pertains to every walk of life.
They learn how to fall down better. They learn how to bump into people and learn how to not get off stride, so to speak, in every sport. It's just really good and healthy. We have pitchers now. I mean, not now. 10 years, at least 10 years, 15 years ago, they stopped playing positions. We got a wonderful young player here with the Giants, Bryce Eldridge. He's 21 years old, 6'7". He's never played a position in his life until he got to to professional sports. He was always a pitcher and a DH. So he never was out on the field. And now he's in big league camp trying to learn a new position, first base, which is not easy. So that's been going on for years with a lot of these kids. And you ask them, but then you see the guys that knew how to play basketball and knew how to run track and stuff. And you can tell who those guys are. So yeah, that's good. I think it's great for your mind. You can turn off something and go into something else and have fun with that,
I do think parents are becoming more aware of the physical issues of early specialization, the overuse injuries. What many of them don't understand is when a child specializes in one sport, the amount of mental pressure that they feel because they need to succeed, because this is the only sport they play, is massively increased and negatively impacts their mental well-being.
I can give you my story, and I don't think I've ever told it in that, because of the question you're asking me. You might talk about it in general, but when you're asked specifically, so I played everything, and then I stopped growing when I got to junior high school. My driver's license, I was 5'3", 125 pounds. So they had CD basketball, they called it. And if you were a D, you were 5'6" and under, you could play in a league. I said, whoa, I can still play. I don't have to play in the varsity men's. So heck yeah, I'll play. So I got to play basketball. So you play little league in the summer because, and then the junior high, there was no baseball. There was only softball. And so I thought I was good. I'd ride a skateboard, I'd jump a bike, I'd do all kinds of stuff being from California. But then when I grew suddenly out of nowhere, when I was an early, I went to school, I didn't graduate till I was 17, not 18. So I grew late. So when I was a senior, I finally grew that summer, and from 5'6" to about 6'2", which was big, and my body got awkward. I was uncoordinated, but I kept playing basketball, and that helped me. And I can't play baseball anymore. I'm left-handed, and I don't have any power. I can barely get to first base. 90 feet's too far for me now. So to me, having sports outside of the high school teams, I was still happy. And so I learned how to draw, and I wanted to be an architect or whatever. Within 6 months, I was the #1 draft pick. I grew again a little bit, and I went to junior college on a business. I was going to want to be a business major and maybe try to be an architect and maybe work in my dad's plant or something. I started throwing the ball a little harder, and I was always a good athlete. It just didn't have the body to go with it. So I was never pressured to do well at all, zero. And then it hit. I mean, there was a war. We had a war. There was a small war going on. I'm not sure where we were supposed to, Grenada or something was going on. And I swear my coach walked up to me and goes, "You're going to get drafted." And I said, because Vietnam War just ended. I said, "Wait a minute, the draft's gone." He goes, I said, "I'm going in the Army?" And he goes, No. Detroit Tigers and these teams, they all want to draft you in the first round. But he was, I was shocked almost, but he was actually testing me. He wanted to see if I'd sign. The scouts used the coach to ask me. I said, "I can't play professional sports yet. A month ago, nobody knew who I was, so to speak, other than my father's son." So the pressure wasn't there to succeed in any sport other than what I wanted. My pressure I put on myself. And so it was all a surprise. And I kind of took that the rest of my life. Instead of saying I have to make money, I'm going to work at something and do well. I don't know how long it'll last. And if I get paid, that's wonderful. And then those things change when free agency, all these wonderful things that pop up that you got to deal with. But again, so in a sense, I try to do that with my kids. Just let them play sports, have fun with their teammates, learn how to get knocked down, get up, all those wonderful things. And, have confrontations and let it go. Now you're best friends. You learn all that in sport, right?
And as I think you know, Steel Sports has a close association with FIBS, the Federation for Baseball and Softball in Italy. So I'm very intrigued about your involvement with Team Italy in the upcoming World Baseball Classic. How did you get involved with them? And the big question for me, how do you think they're going to do? I'm very intrigued as to what you think might be able to be considered a success for them in such a competitive tournament.
Oh, gosh. Well, it started, I was lucky enough, almost 10 years ago now, maybe longer. I was inducted in the Italian National Hall of Fame out of Chicago. So that kind of started a little bit. I started getting around those guys again, and you got Lasorda behind you. My dad played against him in the minor leagues.
Oh, wow.
And a lot of connections throughout baseball. And then about 3 years ago, the Federation asked me to come to New York for the dinner in the Bronx. Mm-hmm. They gave me an award, but there were so many people there. It was neat, from all the young kids, and it was such a big fundraiser, right? And next to our table was Francisco Cervelli and Marco and Marco Landi and all these guys, and they start talking about the team and this and that. I'm thinking I'm too old to do it again. I did it for Team USA the last time. I was in the bullpen and helping out, and I didn't think anything of it. And then I said, oh yeah, the Classic's coming back in 3 years. Okay, I'll be 60, whatever, 7 years old. And then Ned Coletti called me, who's the GM of the team, who used to be with us with the San Francisco Giants. He goes, would you be interested in doing Team Italy? And I said, well, I appreciate you asking me, but I want to know, because he's an American guy. He was American GM. He's of course, he's Italian, Chicago guy, but do the Italian people want me? It's their team. It's their country. It's their people they want to boost their sport. They want to see their young people do well and get excited, have it go back to Italy and go, yeah, we can do this. Real simple. So I needed their, confirmation. They said, if they would like me to do it, how do you want me to help? I didn't think they wanted me on the field necessarily. So that's kind of where it started. Sorry.
So do you think they have a realistic chance of doing well in the group? And what would the definition of doing well be for the Italian team?
I don't know. You know what? It's so I've been in it enough to know it's the playoffs. Worse, it's almost winner take all every game in a sense. You got to win two. And then tiebreakers, you got to somehow get in. I think Italy beat the Netherlands a few years ago on that very thing, a tiebreaker aspect. So we know that can happen. We'd rather win three. But yeah, it's going to be tough. You know what? The USA is supposed to win. I was with that club. They felt the same angst. Can we do it? That these teams, Great Britain does, everybody. Realistically, we know they're strong. We know they're deep. And now they have pitchers, which, top flight guys normally can't pitch in these games. And it's very unusual to have these big time starters going to pitch. So that does a different turn or a twist on it. But absolutely, we feel that way. And the showing is important, how we do it too. I know Francisco feels that way. And so I think we have something for him.
Yes, and we're looking forward, as I'm sure you know, to watching Dusty Baker, who'll be coaching Nicaragua in the same tournament, one of our Steel Sports Advisory Board members.
Yeah, we talked. I saw him. So Dusty still works with us with the Giants. So I saw him during the summer. I see him in spring. And I said, Team Nicaragua, huh? He goes, yeah. He's excited. He loves coaching. He loves playing, being there. So I'm excited for that to see how they do.
A final question from me. As I've got to know the game of baseball more, I'm often confused as why it's not a more globally prominent game. What do you think that MLB or USA Baseball or any of the baseball associations could do to make it a more appealing game to more countries all around the world?
It's funny because it is with the WBC, you feel like it's getting bigger and it's bigger, but it's in a funny way, even though we're drawing a lot of people at the big league games and our minor leagues do well. Of course, there's a lot less of them now. They cut back on the minor league teams over the years, but I think it's at least 30, 40 years before my kids, even when I was playing ball, I noticed there was no kids at the playground anymore with their gloves, bats, playing ball. I don't know. And even then there was no travel. What's going on? And is it too expensive? Is it too much thought? You have to learn the outs. You have to learn the bases. You have to throw in the outfield. You have to cut off, man. Is it too complicated? Is it too tough? I don't know. So we had but they're doing well. Then the girls softball took over and wow, they're doing great. I mean, it's growing like weeds. Maybe it's cyclical, it just goes in cycles, but baseball, maybe you see it better across the globe, but you wouldn't think that if you're in Dominican, right?
Right, exactly.
Oh, that's the only, well, we know soccer, of course. But I think now in America, I think it's too expensive. I think they're doing a great job with the grassroots stuff, getting our black players back in the game. To me, that was the best time in baseball ever. It was the golden era between the 60s, up to the 90s. They call it a steroid thing, but when we had young African-American players playing, it made our game a lot better. And half our Hall of Famers are black players probably. I don't even know that, but I felt an honor to play against Frank Robinson or, Willie Stargell and these people and Reggie Jackson. So I think that's important because we lost the inner city players, to be honest. We always had the peripheral, California, Texas, East Coast a little bit. And I think that's part of it. I had a lot to do with it. And I think it's starting to come back with all that push towards, seeing more guys playing out of Compton and that area of Los Angeles and those leagues that they're doing. King Griffey Jr.'s and a million guys. I think it's great.
Yeah.
But globally, I don't know. You might be able to ask that better than me.
I do think baseball is a very challenging game because ultimately it's a game of failure in many ways. You have to be able to embrace the failure, learn from it, and move on. If you think about hitting, for example, nobody's batting 1,000, not even the top players in the league. And I think, unfortunately, the younger generation can have a hard time with this because they become so used to instant gratification. The thought of failure and having to take a long time to learn from it can be daunting to them and can possibly put them off baseball.
That's true. That's true. But they don't understand 0 for 4 didn't mean you failed. If you got on base or you got a ball in the outfield or you were able to score a run somehow because you walked or there was an error, if you didn't get a hit for 10, 20 games, okay, you're kind of failing a little bit, but in general, they do it like one at bat in Little League, they get so upset. Yeah. And so, and I think that's a great analysis, just talking about they need the quick gratification of, I got to do it. And it is hard. And if a guy hits a ball, they get upset now. I said, what are you talking about? See those guys behind you? They're 7 guys that are helping you.
Yeah.
You got your catcher and you, but use them as your teammates. That's not a failure because that guy hit you, because it's all about strikeouts and home runs instead of bunting, getting the ball over, hit and run, things like that.
Okay, Dave, I want to thank you sincerely. You've given us a great glimpse into what it's like to be under the pressure and headlights of the MLB and some real things to think about, both for parents, for athletes, and for coaches. Thank you again, and I look forward to meeting you in person in Houston. I'll be attending the Italy v Great Britain and the Italy v USA games.
Anytime. Thank you, Steve.
Yeah, good luck.
Bye, sir. Bye.
Alrighty. I want to thank you all for coming out tonight. Hope you thought that was as valuable and insightful as I did. I want to give a big thank you to Dave Righetti and Steve Jones. And we look forward to seeing what's going on in the World Baseball Classic in the next coming days and weeks. And then I hope that you join us next month. We're going to have Amy Goodson on. She's runs the Sports Nutrition Playbook. And we're going to get into a little bit of that as well in a live interview. So once again, thank you all for coming out. I appreciate it. And have a good rest of your night.